Okay, good morning, everybody. Let's stand and sing. There's a river flowing in my soul.
Good morning. I'm Richard Steele, today's lay leader, and I welcome all to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane. This includes those who are with us in person in the sanctuary, remote attendees who have connected via our streaming feed to watch the service, and those who are using Zoom to participate interactively from locations around North America and beyond. We are glad that each of you is here. Today we have a guest speaker, Mr. Eddie Tabash of Los Angeles, whose interview some of you may have seen yesterday in the Spokesman Review. Mr. Tabash is a constitutional lawyer, now in his 29th year of service on the Board of Trustees of Americans United for Separation of Church and State. He also chairs the board of directors of the Center for Inquiry, which advocates for secular humanism and scientific skepticism. He's a recognized expert in demonstrating how the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, particularly the latter's First Amendment, were intentionally designed by the framers to require equal rights for believers, agnostics, and atheists alike. Such an understanding leads to the truth, ignored by today's Supreme Court, that no branch of government is permitted to favor believers over non-believers. Please note that Mr. Tabash has graciously agreed to conduct a Q&A session at 12:15, so 15 minutes after the end of this service. So please stick around for that if you have additional questions. Please join me in giving a very warm welcome to Eddie Tabash. Whether you are in the sanctuary today or watching from afar, it is here that we join to create a nourishing religious home with a mission to champion justice, diversity, and environmental stewardship in the wider world, or as we say more concisely, to create community, find meaning, and work for justice. Now, please take a few minutes to greet one another. We turn now from our informal greetings to formally begin our service by lighting our chalice, the symbol of Unitarian Universalism, of our unity and solidarity, of our openness and inclusion, of our community and individuality. May this small flame be an offering of warmth to those who are cold and alone, and a light to those in darkness. May it be a flame that ignites justice in our world and a beacon of hope to those in need. And may it reflect at least a spark of truth wherever truth has been lost, and cast a healthy shadow of doubt where it has been found. Historically, one of the earliest activists in North America for constitutional separation of church and state was Roger Williams, most widely known as the founder of Rhode Island. Born in London around 1603, he was a precocious child of independent mind and strong will. He studied at Cambridge University, receiving his Bachelor of Arts in 1627. And during his studies, he became a Puritan, arguing for separation from the Church of England, which he considered to be false and corrupt. In 1630, he and his wife emigrated to the Massachusetts Bay Colony, where Puritanism was strong. But after arrival, he declined an invitation from the Church of Boston to serve as interim minister, decrying its resort to civil magistrates to punish religious infractions like Sabbath breaking and blasphemy. In 1635, the colony banished Williams from their territories, so he negotiated the purchase from Native Americans of the lands around Narragansett Bay to the south and established a refuge there for religious and intellectual dissidents. And he made an excursion to England to obtain recognition for his new colony of Rhode Island and Providence plantations. In 1637, its earliest governing document, the Providence Civil Compact, explicitly restricted governmental authority to civil matters exclusively. It was the New World's earliest constitutional barrier between church and state, in William's singular, upstart, and smallest of colonies.
Okay, now's the time. If we have any children who'd love to come and sing This Little Light of Mine with us, come sing with us. This is the pop-up choir that we're doing every last Sunday of the month for the kids and also the choir. So we're going to sing with them, but we're waiting for the kids to come and sing. Yes, and the kids at heart, join us.
Here comes some
Yep.
kiddos from
And
the
yep.
back.
Another kid at heart.
Good. Come on up.
Yay! This is for you.
Good.
This is for you. Yes.
join us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right over here with me. Come on, be brave.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good.
Right over here. I know. Well, they're not here today, my babies. Okay. All right, that's good. That works for right now.
Hey, they're here. We're glad.
Yes, here we go. Okay.
Each time we gather as a congregation, there are always those who are with us in our hearts and minds and whom we want to wrap in our love and care. We light a candle for them this morning. We light a candle for the people of Minneapolis who have suffered mayhem and death at the hands of ICE agents. We remember also the people of Venezuela, apparently now ruled by U.S. Viceroy and Archivist Marco Rubio. We light a candle for the people of Ukraine who continue to fight and defend their homeland against a Russian war of aggression. We mourn all the innocent victims of lawless, militarized violence around the globe in Palestine, Israel, Lebanon, Syria, Iran, Nicaragua, the Caribbean, Atlantic, Pacific, and elsewhere. And let us not forget all those in this country living in terror of ICE raids and its practices of detention, child separation, inhumane treatment, deportation, and/or death. Let us share a moment in silence, embracing others who are here in our hearts. You are welcome to say their names aloud. Those who are named aloud and those remembered in silence, we hold in our community of compassion. We now gratefully give and receive this morning's offering, which sustains this community and its mission to the larger world.
that, I'd love to invite the children to come forward again, once more if they'd like to, for our story for all ages. This story is called Frances Harper Bends the Ark, and it is by Jessica York. Sometimes freedom is a long time coming. It may take generations upon generations for justice to be won. Our Unitarian ancestor, Reverend Theodore Parker, said, "I do not pretend to understand the moral universe. The arc is a long one. From what I see, I am sure it bends towards justice." The Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. often used this quote. Barack Obama added, "But here is the thing. It does not bend on its own. It bends because each of us in our own way puts our hand on the arc and we bend it in the direction of justice." The hands of Unitarian Universalists have been bending the arc for many years. You may have heard of John Adams, Susan B. Anthony, Christopher Reeve, and Rachel Carson. But have you heard of Frances Ellen Watkins Harper? Anybody? Oh, well, you're in for a treat. Her hand was on the arc, too. Harper was born a free black woman in Baltimore, Maryland in 1825. That's 200 years ago. She was raised in the household of her uncle, an educator and African Methodist Episcopal, or AME, minister. He was also an abolitionist, a person who objected to the enslavement of people. Harper followed in her uncle's footsteps to become an educator and an abolitionist. She also became a writer, publishing her first book of poetry when she was 20 years old, and publishing the first short story by an African-American woman later in her life. Her writing often urged people in oppressed groups to take a firm stand for equality. She taught, ran part of the Underground Railroad, and lectured around the country to bend the arc towards justice. In 1863, abolitionists celebrated success with the passage of the Emancipation Proclamation. It did not right away create a world where African Americans were treated equally and fairly, but it did make slavery illegal. Harper saw that there was work to be done. She put her hand towards women's civil rights, in particular the rights of black women to vote. During her justice work, Harper met many Unitarians who were also working to bend the arc. She felt at home with our liberal religious beliefs and knew that her work could strengthen the justice work of the Unitarians. She joined the First Unitarian Church of Philadelphia in 1870. She frequently read her poetry from the pulpit at this church, but she also kept her membership and taught Sunday school at an AME church too. Harper died in 1911, before the 19th Amendment gave women the right to vote in 1919. This was a cause that she had worked so hard to bring about. Yet Harper understood that her labors might bring about freedoms that she herself would never enjoy. She said, "Apparent failure may hold in its rough shell the germs of a success that will blossom in time and bear fruit throughout eternity." Some of the fruits of Harper's labor and the labor of other Unitarian Universalists are enjoyed by us today. And yet, we are not done yet, and we must still work to bend the arc towards justice. Now, please join me in singing the children out to Children's Chapel.
For today's meditation, I invite you into a state of repose. Make yourselves comfortable, close your eyes if you wish, and breathe slowly, deeply and mindfully. Reflect on these words of American author and visionary of extraterrestrial civilizations, Robert A. Heinlein. Almost any sect, cult, or religion will legislate its creed into law if it acquires the political power to do so. Now please welcome Eddie Tabash. And I would mention also on the table in the back, there are materials related to his topic that you're welcome to pick up.
I want to thank everybody who made my presentations today possible. What I will be doing is I'm going to initially use prejudice against atheists as a segue into an argument that the Constitution was designed to protect everybody, believer and non-believer alike. We're going to have a bit of a window into the past to see how remarkable it was that the framers of our constitutional system required everyone to be treated equally before the law. And we will see the remarkable level of enlightenment of people in the late 18th century as they created our constitutional system. Every one of us knows that today there is a specter haunting America, and that is the specter of religious tyranny, oppression, and looming theocracy. The way this came about is because Trump was able to put 3 justices on the Supreme Court, creating a religious right-wing majority. The objective of these people, now also manifesting as Christian nationalists, would be to impose a theocratic system on the United States where we would formally be a Christian nation and where other religions would be subordinate and non-believers could actually be second-class citizens. But what these people ignore, even their top legal scholars, is the actual history of the creation of the Bill of Rights, particularly the First Amendment. The framers were influenced by Enlightenment values. Even if they were personally religious, they didn't carry that into their cobbling together of our constitutional system. And yet, at the same time, you can see the overarching theme prior to other considerations, the platform, the foundation of American liberty in the realm of religion to our framers was the rights of conscience of everyone, regardless of what anyone believed. James Madison was the principal author of the First Amendment. Nobody disputes that the most important influence on him was Thomas Jefferson, and the two of them had virtually identical ideas about the separation of church and state. So their views on religion and government and the rights of conscience are extremely important to understanding our current system. In 1785, 4 years before drafting and introducing the Bill of Rights and the First Amendment into the First Congress, Madison wrote in opposition to an assessment of taxes by the Virginia legislature that would have gone to the benefit of all clergy. And this is what Madison said, again, keeping with the theme of protecting the rights of conscience for everyone, regardless of what they believe. He wrote that the religion of every person must be left to the conviction and conscience of every person. He also said that our opinions depend only upon the evidence contemplated by our minds and cannot follow the dictates of others. He also opposed any form of religious establishment, and that becomes crucial as we look at the final wording of the First Amendment. But for our purposes, James Madison used the word establishment to mean any identifiable religious body. I'll tie that together a bit later on. Jefferson and Madison collaborated on getting Jefferson's Virginia Statute for Religious Freedom through the Virginia legislature, which Madison accomplished in January of 1786 when Jefferson was in Paris. It said that everyone should be free to profess and to argue for any view on matters of religion. When it passed, Madison wrote to Jefferson that they can both be very happy that this law extinguishes the ambitious hope of restraining the human mind. Once again, freedom of conscience, unrestricted intellectual inquiry. 35 years later, in his autobiography, Jefferson triumphantly wrote that the Virginia statute was meant to secure protection for all points of view. And what Jefferson wrote was that the mantle of protection applies to the Jew, the Gentile, the Christian, Mohammedan, Hindu, and for our purposes, very important, the infidel of every denomination. Now, Madison wrote to Jefferson in October of 1787 that religion, even in its coolest state, has been much more oftener, the language back then, a motive to oppression than a restraint from it. In February of 1788, Madison wrote in the Federalist, number 52, defending the absence of any religious test for public office. He wrote that public office should be open to merit of every description without regard to any particular profession of religious faith. In October of 1788, Madison, the principal architect of the First Amendment, was to become the First Amendment, wrote to Jefferson and said he is very concerned that the ban on a religious test for office will survive because he was afraid that otherwise there would be a discrimination against infidels. Once again, the non-believer being protected not as having greater rights, but equal rights. Madison also was afraid that the general public would narrow the rights of conscience. And this is why the First Amendment and all the Bill of Rights do not depend on any popular majorities. They don't depend on any assent by the general public. They protect the rights of the minority, regardless of what the majority thinks or wants. In fact, the way Madison said it is that we cannot submit the rights of conscience to be substantially narrowed by public definition. Now, to continue this theme that the rights of conscience for everyone, believers and non-believers alike, were intentionally embedded in our constitutional system, we see that during the debates on what was to become the First Amendment in the summer of 1789, Representative Daniel Carroll expressed the sentiment of that era when he said, "The rights of conscience are in their nature of peculiar delicacy, that they will little bear even the gentlest touch of government hand." Once again, protecting the rights of conscience of everyone. Now, when the House sent the measure over to the Senate, which was the early stages of what was to become the Bill of Rights, what was to become the First Amendment, something very important happened, which is completely ignored by the religious right. Today's religious right wing targets those of us who are non-believers. They say government can't favor one religion over others, but can side collectively with religion against non-belief. So they're actually saying that the non-believer can be shunted off into some kind of second-class citizenship. But yet, there's something which they can't explain away. In September of 1789, the Senate considered two wordings that would have done just that, but they were rejected and never brought back. One was, "Congress shall make no law establishing one religious sect or society in preference to others." The second is, "Congress shall make no law establishing any particular denomination of religion in preference to any other." If the framers really intended to only prohibit government from favoring one religion over another, one of these two wordings were adopted. So, when it went back to the House was unsatisfied with the Senate's version, which was Congress shall make no law establishing articles of faith or mode of worship or prohibiting the free exercise of religion. Madison chaired a joint House and Senate conference committee. The final wording is no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. And here is the tie together that I promised you a few minutes ago. Look back to Madison's definition of establishment, which means all religious institutions and belief systems. So you cannot show respect to an establishment of religion, which means religion cannot enjoy special privilege not enjoyed by anybody else. So what we have here is we have proof that the First Amendment was drafted with the specific intent of protecting the rights of everyone. He also, and this is an extremely important point about this, the Bill of Rights were introduced, Madison himself said so upon making the introduction. They were introduced to limit the power of government, not to expand it. So if their purpose was to limit the power of government, we cannot read then from the First Amendment that it was designed to expand the right of government to discriminate against non-believers. It didn't enhance or expand the powers of government, which means it did not imbue government with the authority to single out any particular group for adverse discrimination. And that is another argument for the protection of believers and non-believers equally. Also, for those who say that the First Amendment actually was intended to bring about a Christian nation, how do they square that with what Madison wrote in 1785? During the almost 15 centuries has the legal establishment of Christianity been on trial. What have been its fruits? More or less in all places, pride and indolence in the clergy, ignorance and servility in the laity, in both superstition, bigotry, and persecution. That's not somebody who created a system of a Christian nation. But we also have to look at what Jefferson and Madison said after the Bill of Rights was enacted to see what their thinking was, because that same thinking was present during the founding period. For instance, 2 years before the Bill of Rights were introduced, Jefferson, the main mentor of Madison on church-state separation, once again cemented the concept of protecting the rights of conscience of everyone in a very beautiful passage. He said that the powers of government extend to only such acts that injure other people. But then he said, it does me no injury for my neighbor to say there are 20 gods or no God. It neither picks my pocket nor breaks my leg. Once again, the indomitable, irrefutable theme of protecting the rights of conscience for everybody. Now, in his 1817 detached memorandum that Madison wrote after leaving the presidency, he considered even the appointment of chaplains for both houses of Congress to be unconstitutional. Jefferson, as president, refused to declare days of Thanksgiving. And then, while Madison was president, a Baptist church was mistakenly built on federally owned land. Congress tried to let the church have the land as a gift. Madison vetoed it because, in his words, it comprises a principle and precedent for the appropriation of funds of the United States for the use and support of religious societies, which is contrary to the Constitution's prohibition against a law respecting an establishment of religion, Madison quoting himself because he wrote those words. So we see here that there is an enormous amount of actual evidence of what the framers intended, more than the religious right would ever accept. Back in 1774, Madison wrote, "The diabolical, hell-conceived principle of persecution rages among some, and to their eternal infamy, the clergy," he didn't discriminate and say some clergy, "the clergy can furnish their quota of imps for such business. This vexes me the most of anything ever." And in 1800, the year in which Jefferson was first elected president, he writes, "The clergy, by getting themselves established by law and engrafted into the machine of government, have been a formidable engine against civil and religious rights." So we have the actual truth. But what has happened? We have gone from a Supreme Court that protects the rights of everyone to a Supreme Court that is ever closer to imposing a theocracy on us. How did this happen? It happened because Trump put Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Barrett on the court, creating the current religious right-wing majority. And an example of the damage caused by this new religious right-wing majority can be seen right here in the state of Washington in the 2022 case of Kennedy versus Bremerton School District. A football coach was, during public school time, during a football game, would invite his team and the other team to have prayer sessions on the football field, inviting the parents to come down from the stands, which they did. The Supreme Court, in upholding what this football coach did, fractured the facts for their own purposes. They said he was only off by himself praying quietly. But that was not what he did. In an unprecedented act, Justice Sotomayor, in dissent, actually put into her opinion photographs of large numbers of people participating in this prayer session. So it absolutely was a dishonest decision by the 6 religious right-wing justices. But they did something which was even more ominous in that case. They actually destroyed all rational and traditional approaches to constitutional interpretation. They basically said, we don't care what the framers intended. We don't even care what the Constitution says. For interpreting the No Establishment Clause, we're going to look at historical practices. Well, let's say the historical practices were wrong. For 10 years after the Bill of Rights were ratified, there was an unconstitutional sedition law which was used to punish people who criticized the president. So if we look to historical practices, we can say, even though these people made a mistake, it's part of our historical history and legacy, so that's what the Constitution means. There's no justification for this. Now, in June of 2022, when the Supreme Court finally gave the religious right the overturning of Roe versus Wade, Justice Alito said the very same thing. He said, we will now look to historical precedent. So my argument is that even if we use his test, since Roe versus Wade was 50 years old, it is part of historical precedent. Now, even Chief Justice Roberts, who voted to uphold Mississippi's restricting the allowable period from Roe from 24 weeks to 15 weeks, voted against the outright overturning of Roe. What he said was it would be a jolt to the legal system. I think what's really going on here is Chief Justice Roberts is actually afraid that he'll look ridiculous in history presiding over such a brazenly political court. And I think he honestly is concerned about the public image of the court. Now, we hoped after Roe versus Wade was overturned, there would be an outcry that would affect all elections, particularly those dealing with the Supreme Court. It never happened. This is something that never occurred. Since constitutional protection has been removed from abortion rights, there have been deaths, I believe, in Texas and Georgia for women denied the procedure. Also, there have been medical complications for women needing emergency medical services because they were pregnant. In South Carolina, there was a measure which we defeated back because some of its sponsors pulled away once they realized what they were doing, that could have been used to apply the death penalty for women who have abortions. That was then scrapped because some of the sponsors pulled away from it. But think about it this way. If you believe that at fertilization you have a full human being, it's a very short step to say the intentional destruction of that human being is any different from any other form of first-degree murder. Now, scientifically, of course, to call a fertilized egg a person is a problem because it can still spin off into twins or triplets or even more and come back again. What actual fully formed human being can split off to 2 or 3? And so we see here again the use of religious doctrine to destroy precious freedoms of others. Now the question comes to, what can we do? At my age, and I see many of similar age in the audience, I have a feeling in some ways we are rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic, but you know, we have to do it. Even if we don't live to see the restoration of church-state separation, what we do now can help future generations in getting it back. Here's what we need to do, among many things. We need to enlist the aid of fair-minded religious people who believe in the equality of everybody. We need to start electing not just a Congress, but local school boards, state legislatures, town councils, people who support the concept of church-state separation. We have to talk to our neighbors. We have to talk to everybody and present this not as an attack on religion, but as an effort to secure equal rights for everybody. And we must confront the claim that to give everyone the same rights as religion and not privilege religion is to disfavor religion. It's just to treat everybody equally. Also, my organization, Americans United for Separation of Church and State, involves everybody, believers and non-believers, in protecting our freedoms. Then we have to view each presidential and each Senate election campaign as a referendum on the Supreme Court. Justices only get on that court and all the federal courts if a president appoints them and the Senate ratifies the appointment. So each time there's a presidential or U.S. Senate race, we must do that. We also have to branch out to anybody who's fair-minded, even if we disagree with them on other issues, and enlist them in a broad-based coalition to protect the freedoms of everybody. And again, we have to instruct younger generations about the importance of this. I don't know if we will live to see any real progress, given how powerful the current Supreme Court is. But this is a struggle that's worth fighting for, even if we never see the result. And as bad as we might feel, as beaten down as we might feel by Trump and his religious right-wing allies, the goal is still worth it, whether we achieve it or not. It's worth devoting ourselves to once again having an America, and this time make it permanent for government and religion to be as far apart as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's stand and sing. There is more love somewhere.
For our benediction, I offer the words of founding father, diplomat, scientist, and America's original community organizer, Benjamin Franklin. When religion is good, I conceive it will support itself. And when it does not support itself, and God does not take care to support it, so that its professors are obliged to call for help of the civil power, 'tis a sign, I apprehend, of its being a bad one. Amen. Blessed be. Salam alaikum and shalom.
Amen and amen. Oh, very good. Thanks for everything.